kindly settle down so that we can start the session. May I request everybody outside to kindly come into the hall. We're about to start the session. We will now start the session on information assurance, vulnerabilities and solutions. We have with us to chair this session, Lieutenant General Retired JP Singh, PVSM, AVSM, Chief Consultant DRDO and former Deputy Chief of Army Staff. We are also delighted to have with us Lieutenant General Nitin Kohli, AVSM, VSM, SONC, Indian Army, who will be delivering the special address. May I request the General to kindly join us on the dais. We also have Mr. Sanjay Burman, Outstanding Scientist, H, Director, Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, CARE. Colonel Sanjeev Relia, Senior Fellow, USI Institutions of India. Brigadier S.C. Sharma, Director, Access Cadis Aerospace Technologies Limited. May I request the panelists to kindly join on the dais. I'll request General JP Singh to kindly conduct the session.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to session 3 of this very important seminar wherein we'll be discussing information assurance, vulnerabilities and solutions. The impact of the digital revolution on modern war or warfare is matchless due to its malleability, mutability, maneuverability, and functional simultaneity that a digital battlefield creates. Now here, it goes much beyond the legacy battlefield because it is unobtrusive, it is boundaryless, it blurs and blends the various levels, namely the strategic, operational, or tactical levels. However, and thereby leading to what I believe is an expanding and simmering battlefield where last mile connectivity remains vital. Now, with the objective of the digitalized battlefield being primarily enabling smooth operations across the complete spectrum of warfare, by putting the information or the battlefield information into context, generating a common operating picture and coordinating the various sensors and combat elements. Now this leads to a creation of a connectivity-oriented architecture, what we so call the C4ISR. Now within this architecture come the challenges. And these challenges, firstly, are the self-created ones, wherein the services have gone in for their independent network and disparate applications. And they are working on the lack of common tri-services standards and protocols. These are being looked in. Added to this, what came out is that there are technology gaps as far as indigenous R&D is concerned, As also, I personally believe that there is a big flaw in the procurement procedure as far as the ICT elements are concerned. With the technology which changes so fast, we can't have the in vogue procurement policy procedure working for the ICT. This has to undergo a change. But bigger is the challenge that we're going to be talking about is the security of the network systems. And in this session, the focus will be on the information assurance, the vulnerability solutions. And information assurance primarily means assuring information, and two, managing the risks which are related to the use, processing, storage, and transformation of one, the data, and two, to the risks and which are related to the system and the processes which are used for this. Now, information insurance primarily would involve protection of the integrity, availability, authenticity, and the confidentiality of the user's data. And for this, there are these physical, technical, and administrative controls. These are being implemented. The process of the information assurance will have to be a threat-based security system. Herein, one will have to enumerate and classify the information assets which have to be protected, carry out an assessment for those assets in terms of one, the threat which is capable to exploit these assets, and two, the vulnerability of these assets. The sum of the products of these threats which will impact and the probability of this occurring is going to be the total risk to the information assets. Now, thereby, you need a very comprehensive risk management program, as also the technical tools, just like the firewalls, antivirus software, policy procedures, various controls like regular backups, configuration hardening, training in security awareness, and having computer emergency response teams. And likewise, at the tactical level also, the vulnerability and the solutions will have to be found. We have three speakers who would be speaking on the critical info assurance requirement at the tactical battle area. We'll have the second presentation on cyber warfare, and finally on the management of the electromagnetic battle space. But before we start with this presentation, we'll have a special address by General Nitin Kohli, the SONC and the Colonel Commandant of the Signals. General Kohli is a 1975 batch officer of the Corps of Signals. He's had a very distinguished career where he's done courses at the tactical, operational, and strategic levels. He has held appointments of he's commanded a signal regiment in a strike corps, been a CSO in J&K, and he has also been the CSO, the head of the signals in the Eastern Command. He's seen all the terrains. He's been an instructor at prestigious CAT establishments, as also has tenanted all the required command and staff appointments. Currently, since last 1 year, he's been the SONC and he's bringing transformation changes as far as networks, at least as far as the land forces is concerned, and an important man for today's seminar. Over to you, Nitin.
Sir, just before we start this thing, I would request Mr. J.D. Patil to kindly welcome the SONC with the green certificate. FICCI, as a tradition, presents green certificates to its dignitaries who grace the occasions. And this is in... we plant trees in your name. So may I request you to kindly give your special address now, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to talk to you on this enabling network-centric technology, that is a topic given to me by FICCI, and how we are extending it to the battlefield, to the soldier, the foremost soldier. Now, the warfare, as all of you know, has transcended the traditional domains of time and space to information domain. Future wars are likely to be short and intense, with greater battlefield transparency, fought with precision strikes, with concentration of maximum firepower at the point of decision. The focus has therefore shifted from platform to network-centric warfare, which will generate superior combat power by integrating sensors, command control elements, and the weapon platforms for shortening OODA loops. Our infrastructure must therefore support this philosophy. We have to protect our networks from intrusion, interference, and attack by adversaries to maintain continuous availability of information. Our communication networks therefore have to be secure, robust, and capable of enabling large volume of information transfer at high speed with shift in focus from voice to data. The operational concept of dominant maneuver, precision engagement, full dimension protection, and focused logistic will be enabled by information superiority. The annihilating defeat of Iraqi army and the Republican Guards divisions by smaller but networked Americans and British ground, air, and surveillance forces in Operation Iraqi Freedom are a testimony to this. Technologically advanced nations are producing platforms, weapon systems, delivery systems, and command and control infrastructure, which can provide them overwhelming superiority almost instantaneously in terms of detection of targets, location, and targeting in any part of the globe, underwater or surface or in space. Now, networking basically amounts to getting the right information faster to the right forces, who in turn take right actions faster against the right objective. So it shortens the kill chain, that is detect, decide, attack, and assess. Network centricity, it improves military performance in the peacekeeping and the humanitarian relief as well. And this also affects civil and military IT infrastructures alike, and thus has serious implications on the social, economic, political, and military landscape of a country. The impact of NCW on the overall warfare perceptions and perspectives, the need to change doctrines at tactical and strategic levels, alteration in organizational structures, force level training, etc., they have become stark realities facing every country, including India. Now, some of the challenges. Now, many of the advanced nations in the world have already achieved certain degree of net centricity as well as self-synchronization in their armed forces and have effectively deployed necessary force structures and technologies. However, while we may derive certain lessons from their experience, we also need to consider our peculiar environment realities, which seriously impact upon the integration and implementation of network-centric concepts in the Indian context. India would need wide-ranging technological and doctrinal changes to transform the conventional IT-supported operational capability of its armed forces into network-centric capability. So some of the challenges, few are at micro level, rather the short term, which can be taken care of, or rather we are already doing that, and some are long term. I shall cover them under these two heads. Now, the short term ones are these: implementing the scales of proliferation of technology down to the soldier in TBA and associated requirements of ruggedization, weight, portability, simplicity to use, multiplicity of tasks, power management, secrecy, bandwidth, and information processing. Then is to maintain fluidity and flexibility operation. The connectivity to theater of ops has to be provided over multiple radiating and non-radiating media like OFC, satellite, microwave, and so on. So the frequency management and its reuse, especially if the networks have to extend till the fighting soldier, would be a challenge. Operating system and applications have to be tailor-made to suit our requirements. We need to ensure that applications at the user end are light in terms of size and bandwidth, simple to use, and provide information in the desired formats of video, text, or image. Then seamless integration at various levels, at tactical, operational, and strategic, as the boundaries are blurring. Also, the human resource skill development will be a major challenge, not only for user, but also for the engineers and the support staff who will establish, run, and maintain the network and various applications which are running on it. Then a field soldier cannot be burdened with a number of devices for performing different functions like communication, navigation, and surveillance. So the convergence of multiple devices into a single device which is lightweight and simple to use would be order of the day. Now at the macro level, first is while building networks is paramount for the net centricity, the security of the network is critical and cannot be relied upon on foreign content. There is a need to evaluate, develop and apply new indigenous technologies in critical areas like security solutions. We must build our own chips, ICs and software for crucial components. Second is achieving net centricity will entail homegrown solutions catering to our environmental realities. There is a need to define Indian communication standards, protocols and technical framework in consultation with multiple service providers and OEMs. Net centricity is necessarily an evolving process. It's not only as much about provision of networks, but a co-evolution of all aspects of command and control. While technological challenges are being met, we also need to look at organizational reforms, the way we are organized, the way we have our command and control structure, the way we conduct our business, because it continues to be hierarchical. We need to think in and be able to operate in a network environment. We also need to look at integration of well-developed hinterland civil network and military networks to a reliable network of networks which will provide an excellent backbone for growth of tactical networks. We also need to shorten our procurement chain. Development of new and vibrant methods of acceptance of necessity, acquisition, testing and production procurement will enable us to achieve net centricity in an earlier time frame. There is also a need to leverage and demand R&D and best practices from all agencies in order to achieve a truly global status. Now these are just the proverbial tip of the iceberg, but I am quite sure that with our large pool of IC tech specialists, scientists, academia, and increased participation and involvement of industry at various levels, we will attain our shared vision and goal of enabling the soldier of today and tomorrow to fight in an environment of technology-intensive and net-centric battle space, and in turn make India a self-reliant and powerful nation. Now, some of the actions which have been taken and which are underway already in the Indian Armed Forces, we have a large number of networks which have been rolled out, which quite some time back our predecessors started. And they have rolled out, and there are a large number of them which are in the pipeline. We have this cellular communication systems, which is already established in some part of the J&K, and the remaining part of the J&K is being covered. In the eastern sector also, and in fact all the border areas are going to be covered with this MCCS, that is Mobile Cellular Communication System. Various technologies as they were available from time to time, we've been adopting them. It may have been CD1X initially to start with, now these EVDOs, Rev1B, now 4G. Basically we are constrained by certain factors, the frequencies which government is going to give us for a particular, which they allot us, the areas where we're going to operate, how much gap we can have between the two BTSs, because we have the requirement of security. Then there are some other parameters which constrain us. So under those constraints, we are working on this, and hopefully this will be there. Then we have the next network, which is known to this audience very well as the Defense Communication Network, which is already being rolled out. It's a strategic exclusive network of 3 services. It's again IP MPLS based network, and by next year it would have been fully implemented. There are 111 entities all over the country, and equipment has already been delivered there, and we shall have this soon. Then this NFS, which all of you know, that is Network for Spectrum. As you all are aware, its supply order for the OFCs has been already placed. That is for 60,000 kilometers of OFC all over the country, and again very large amount of bandwidth which we shall have. It is also IP MPLS based DWDMs. So these are some of the networks. In addition, as we go on the battlefield, we have TCS, which has been going on, that is Tactical Communication System. It had this is the one which is needed for our mobile formations, and this will take care of the communication needs right up to the battalion headquarters, and even beyond this can go. It is still in the process of, the flexibility lies with us. The technology gives us adequate amount of flexibility where we want to take it. Because beyond that, it will be taken ahead by the BMS, which I'm sure DGIS in the morning would have spoken to you all. That is the Battlefield Management System. The whole thing will be seamlessly, the names can be different, but the basic thing remains same. So that's how, and there are a large number of projects of DGIS, which he would have covered in the morning. That is TAXI-3I projects. In that you have Battlefield Surveillance System, ACCCS, that is Artillery Command Control Communication System, EWS, and ADCNR. In this, some of the things have fructified, and some of the other systems are in the process of getting fructified. It will take some time. There were some initial hitches, and some problems were there which they've been able to get around now. And it is only a question of time. But well, there is a very well laid out, well thought out roadmap on which defense forces are working, so that the soldier there is empowered. He has adequate bandwidth with him for the common tactical picture, so that all of us can have shared awareness, situational awareness, the right and the quick decisions can be taken, and the various activities in the battlefield can be synchronized. But at the same time, though this NCW is good, there is no doubt in this, and the experience of other countries also shows us what happened in Afghanistan to American NCWs and number of other countries who are having. There cannot be total reliance only on NCW in the battlefield, because the degradations are an absolute, this is something which has to be taken care of as far as we are concerned. This degradation can be physical, it can be in terms of electronic warfare, it can be in terms of cyber warfare. So we need to take care of that. Okay, firstly, these are graceful and some graceful degradations, and they can, something else comes up. In case there is a degradation of a network, something else should take over. And in case the whole thing goes because of anything, then we should be able to fall back to our conventional system. So that's how we operate, so that like they say, you have one leg on ground. So that is it as far as my presentation is concerned. I am available for questions thereafter, and we have the session, question answer session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nitin. The SONC has covered 5 very important points. One is the impact of NCW in the modern battlefield and the challenges. Let me tell this audience that way back in 2009, a very intense transformation study of the Indian Army was carried out. I was a member of that transformation study. And that looked into the doctrines, the organization, and the way we're going to fight the future war. And it was driven by 2 major factors. One, imagining or visualizing the future threats. But more importantly, it was driven by the net enablement which is taking place, which has to take place, and ultimately settle down to a net-centric army. Now, it was driven by this and a complete study as to how the doctrines, etc., will evolve. Now, some of them has got implemented, and that is one thing which started giving push, and a roadmap got set in, which was very well brought out by the SONC. And in this particular thing, while as the roadmap exists, the procurement policies and the procurement procedures in particular to the ICT are, and I mentioned it, are flawed. And once again, I understand by General Chet was telling me, the SSC, he says there is a study being done, and probably it may get implemented where there would be a separate procurement procedure as far as the ICT items are concerned. He talked about the network roadmaps, which is important to the industry, because this is where the RFI and the RFPs would be going out. And finally, he spoke about the degradation of or the vulnerabilities of these networks, and this is what this particular session would be talking about. And for this, we have now Dr. Sanjay Berman from the DRDO. Is the Director of CARE, Center for Artificial Intelligence and Research. He joined the DRDO about 28 years ago, firstly in the LRDE, where he was working on Project Aaron. In that, he was looking into all the synchronization and the security aspects. A master's from IIT Kanpur. He has been in the CARE since 2000, and initially he was leading the security development, and since 2012, he's been the director of this very vital lab we have in Bangalore. Now, he will speak on critical information assurance requirements in the tactical battle area. Over to you, and Dr. Berman.
Thank you for the introduction, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First, I must thank FICCI for creating this forum. I personally believe that this is a platform which gives us opportunities to engage, and it is extremely effective and important for us to start becoming part of a unified ecosystem where we can together collaboratively meet the requirements of the battle space. So I have taken a bit of license with respect to tweaking the topic. It is information assurance and meeting a critical requirement of the TBA. And I have been working in this area for some time now, and my attempt here is going to be to share with you a distillate of my experiences. Now, the scenario snapshot we have seen today, driven by Moore's law, Metcalfe's law, it's basically a tidal wave of changes. Systems are getting developed much faster, technologies are coming in much faster than we can either think of using them or think of protecting them correctly. So, military's response to information systems has essentially been in the form of evolvement of network-centric operations, network-centric warfare, network-enabled operations, you may call it what. But the overriding aspect of that is that superior information leads to superior knowledge and decision superiority, shrinking the OODA loop, which we saw General Badran talk about in the afternoon. And the essential requirement over here is that you actually have information systems which are networked in the battle space. So you actually need information that is timely and accurate, obviously. And one aspect which I would like to share with you, which General Badrana did allude to, was in the observe cycle of the OODA loop. There is a certain fog with respect to incomplete incorrectness. But the incomplete and incorrectness may be due to a random failure. But you also need to deal with trustworthiness of that information, because the decisions are based on information, and if the information is actually poisoned by an adversary, you actually get into a situation where your decisions aid the adversary. So we have actually an increasing dependence on information systems, and as the chairman was just mentioning, that the new technologies, new vulnerabilities, new risks lead to such a large space that dealing with these in absolute terms is an impossibility. So you need to actually deal with it in a risk mitigation approach, as a threat management approach. How do you actually do this and do this effectively? The world over, there has been an abject failure in the area of ensuring that cybersecurity properties are actually maintained in the cyber world. Information systems continue to be highly vulnerable. The vulnerability is driven from the fact that technology comes in, but protection at the system engineering stage is not factored in. Subsequent to development, assurance is not taken note of. So the tenets of NCW are well known. You have someone who is robustly networked, that allows sharing, and that leads to a shared common picture. It leads to a dramatic increase in mission effectiveness. Now, if you look at this and accept this aspect, information systems are in the battle space, and these are actually fully networked. And in any war, one of the key aspect is identify the center of gravity of the adversary, take it out, you will win the war. And it so happens in the context of NCW, NCO, network enabled operations, I personally believe that information systems and networked information systems are the center of gravity. They will be actively attacked by the adversary. So we must make sure, and as SONC also pointed out, that these systems are survivable. Actually, you need much more than that. You need these entire systems to be dependable. And in my view, I was wondering what is happening below my belt. So, in my view, we need information systems to be dependable. And dependability has actually, in my view, 6 dimensions. And these need to be understood. In the morning, someone alluded to the fact that we have identified a few things. Actually, that was Brigadier Sharma who mentioned that within our procurement, some of the aspects are not being asked for. Typically, I would say reliability is being looked at, and that is to counter random failures. Security is being looked at very, very partially, very, very superficially, not adequately. Safety, minimal. Survivability, absolutely non-existent. Resiliency, not there. Trustworthiness, some aspects of it there, getting mentioned, but not in its entirety. In fact, our present acquisition process of DPP does not take note of these aspects, which should start appearing during our RFP generation or our QR generation. We also need as a community to identify the metrics by which these 6 dimensions would be measured. We don't have them as yet. So the information system in a tactical battle area is going to run over a very disadvantaged communication grid, which is going to be characterized by, again, interestingly, 6 different dimensions: low bandwidth, high error rates, variable throughput, unreliable connectivity, energy constraints, and vitally, you will have need for radio silence to be observed. Now, the mainstream off-the-shelf technologies today which are used for networking are not very tolerant to radio silence, because if you disconnect them off and then when you reconnect, when you really start, that is the time that they will start configuring themselves up. And that is the time you are, which is the peak of operations. Now you already have low bandwidth, but your control plane has taken up all your bandwidth trying to configure itself. So the user at the end point does not get adequate bandwidth which he needs for necessarily exchanging and sharing information vital for collaboration. Today this particular thing is being characterized, and this is going to be the scenario in the foreseeable future unless we have some disruptive methods coming through. This is being defined today in the some of the command and control literature as disconnected, interminated, and limited environments, or the DIL environments. And in the foreseeable future, we will have to live with that, and we must build our information systems which will work satisfactorily in this environment. Now, the typical information systems that are getting deployed in the TBA have 5 characteristics. They are user-owned equipment and infrastructure. They need to deal with time-sensitive information which must be communicated in a timely manner within given hard time limits. They deal with classified and unclassified information both. There is extensive use of radio communications, And communication in a hostile and physical, in the context of physical as well as RF environment, both you will actually encounter. Mr. Agarwal did mention it in the context of his articulation that electronic warfare is very much going to be faced by the systems in the TBA. So if you look at threats to information system, if you look at the first 4, they typically are at the application layer, and we tend to think about them. But the remaining 4 are at the infrastructure layer of the compute system, and they do not necessarily get addressed adequately. And it is at this layer that we face the threat of subversion from a nation state adversary. It is at this layer you have what is known as advanced persistent threats. So if you look at from virus to APT, you have increasing complexity. Virus is the simplest, APT are the highest and need really resourceful adversary to be at you all the time, because he is targeting you specifically. So in the context of information system and their development, we need to take care of not just the software, not the hardware, but the entire system, because the vulnerability could get introduced at any point of time, and a threat actor would leverage that vulnerability to mount an attack. So it is vital to look at these also, and most of your mainstream security software like antivirus and stuff like that will not be detecting these. Malware detectors will not find these. They are well below the level of the operating system itself. And we are in a connected world, and we are getting more and more connected. Even we are discussing about connecting the dismounted soldier. So what happens because of this is, the consequences of this is, you have an ability to share, but then at the same time, any of the endpoints could actually become the point of attack, which can potentially bring down your entire network. Now why does this essentially happen? I believe the reason for this is that in the mainstream networking technologies today, there is no differentiation between the control plane and the data plane. So the control plane is what can be leveraged by the endpoint to take down the entire network. So it is the control plane access which is actually available intrinsically within the technology, and that is the nature of packet switching today. In the context of mainstream telecom networks earlier, we actually had 2 separate networks. One was for moving a traffic from point A to point B, the user traffic. The other one was the signaling network, the SS7 network, which was actually very different from the traffic carrying network. So initially when you tried to make a call, you picked up, you got a dial tone from the telephone instrument, you dialed, SS7 consumed it. Based upon this, it configured the path to the endpoint, rang the endpoint, and once the receiver picked up the phone, after that you were actually handling only the user traffic, and control plane was out of the loop. Today, with every packet, you actually send out control plane information. So there are very important differences between protecting the systems that we use today, and that is not getting adequately addressed, I believe. So let's look at information assurance as defined by US DoD and of course RFC 4949. It talks about measures that protect and defend information and information systems. So as a first step, within our RFPs, the least that we can potentially do is actually start specifying protection of information and information systems both, not just information per se, by ensuring their confidentiality, integrity, availability, authentication and non-repudiation. Actually, I believe this is only half the story, and this particular model, in my perception, could do with a bit of refinement, because unless you actually detail it up a bit, this will not lead to identification of the threats appropriately. For example, if you look at CIA, that actually refers to information. Authentication refers to authentication of the people, and non-repudiation is about something which we do not necessarily have to worry so much about in the battlefield as much as deception. So this particular model does not handle deception, and deception is vitally important in the battlefield. An adversary will try to deceive you. So in my view, this particular model is actually not complete and comprehensive. We need something which is much more complete and comprehensive. For example, this document, now I mean this model does not even refer to validity. Validity of a command is vital. You can't replay a command and have the same effect to happen 2 days later. The command may have integrity, it may be authentic, but it may not be valid anymore. So this model does not deal with those aspects also. Let's look at assurance. Actually, assurance is about confidence. If you look at two definitions of assurance or assurance level in the context of CNNSI 4009 or RFC 4949 or common criteria, the operative word is confidence. High assurance means higher confidence, higher trustworthiness. So what is security assurance? Is the confidence that the system mitigates the identified threats adequately. So it is about risk management, it is about identifying your threats. Confidence that the system operates correctly. Confidence that the system can be operated in the identified deployment scenario. That is, you have your information system designed to do something in the TBA, not elsewhere. What works, as Mr. Ramudu pointed out in the morning, what works in the lab environment or in the mainstream does not necessarily work in the TBA. And then more importantly, again it was this was alluded to some extent, was confidence that the system can be maintained throughout its life cycle. Operative word is without degradation of security properties. All these four aspects are part of assessing assurance properties of an information system. And IA, I believe, is about all of the above. So let's look at each of this quickly separately. So the first one, identified threats, which basically means the derived requirement is that your threats must be complete, correct, consistent. Your asset identification to which those threats are should also be complete, correct, consistent. If you leave something out, either the threat or the asset, you have inadequate protection. And most importantly, you must worry about what are the adversary's capabilities that I must assume. Typically, in a CIO scenario, what you assume, and if you are having operations at the edge of the border, what you assume are going to be two different things. What you require in an urban scenario, what you require in a non-urban scenario, the requirements would be different. So the adversary capabilities and abilities also need to be identified right. And this should lead to the security requirement document, which is generated by the user / asset owner in consultation with a domain expert. This is actually a very complex exercise. It is not something which is very trivial and should not be taken very lightly. Now, based upon the above, the system is architected and built right by the developer. Morning it was referred to that if you want EMP protection, if you do it at the design stage, it would be maybe 5 to 10% more expensive, but if you retrofit, it will be much more. But in the context of security, if security is not architected into the system, you cannot achieve it. It is impossible. And in the context of dependable system, where you need those 6 attributes, you must build it in from day one. You must bake it in. Otherwise, security as an overlay doesn't work. It is very brittle and will lead to inconsistent deployment, difficult to use environment. If you look at operates correctly, it is the assessment by the evaluator. This is what the evaluator does. Evaluator actually checks that the right system has been built and that the system has also been built right. So in the context of system which has been built right, he looks at the design and implementation both, and for this he does require assistance from the developer to provide the necessary information and documentation for him to carry out an independent assessment. So based upon the evaluation, you have the certification issued, which is about the confidence on the adequacy of the system to mitigate the identified threats, and the system does what it is supposed to and nothing else. and it is the nothing else aspect of it which gets you. Because in the context of military system and high assurance system, you must worry about subversion, and subversion comes in the form of nothing else functionality. It does what it is supposed to, but the nothing else aspect of it. In the context of deployment scenario, obviously the functional evaluation is carried out as a part of user trials where you see whether the function evaluates, performs satisfactorily. But the system operation evaluation, whether the system can be configured and managed at the operational environment, in the operational environment correctly, is again another aspect of assurance. This was referred to in the previous session. If you look at the fourth dimension, whether the system can actually be maintained across the life cycle. Now, here you need to assess at least 4 different aspects. The system can be sanitized prior to maintenance so that it prevents leakage. System has an affordable mean time to repair. Obsolescence mitigation is adequately addressed. Pre-planned product improvement is in place because we want to sustain it for a long time in the battlefield. Based upon the above, again a certification is issued on the confidence about the adequacy of the system, that it can be maintained for the expected lifetime without degrading security properties. So IA is actually complex. There is no necessarily consistent definition. If you look at the inadequacy of this model, I refer to a few things. The traditional CIA is incomplete. The NIST CIA definition is incorrect, because integrity requirement includes authenticity, which is completely wrong. You can have integrity without authenticity and authenticity without integrity. The DoD CIA includes authentication of people and non-repudiation. It is incomplete and ambiguous because validity is missing. Deception versus non-repudiation has to be thought of. What is more important? And there is absolute absence of assessment. Common criteria as an assessment methodology the world over is a failed concept because it is inconsistent. It leads to misrepresentation. It's expensive and time consuming. It has actually driven a market for lemons. Supply chain assurance is another aspect of information assurance which is vitally important. So if you look at the supply chain assurance, we have not addressed this completely and adequately. The problem space is that you have threats and vulnerabilities. In the context of threat, you have disruption and subversion, both as very critical threats which must be addressed. The solution space would include countermeasures which are taken during acquisition, during product development, before and during the distribution and delivery. Mitigation of vulnerabilities have to be done by looking at supply chain management, because if you don't do that, you will end up with an untrustworthy product, an undependable product. Security engineering is vital. As I was mentioning, to build dependability in, build security in, you must bake it in. And that requires security engineering to be done, dependability engineering to be done from day one. So if you look at the life cycle of threats, at the requirement stage, the requirements can be influenced by poisoning the requirements. Design stage, you can have trojans and backdoors getting infected into your design stage itself. Sourcing of components, you could have tainted components or counterfeit components. At the implementation stage, you could be having bug injection, leading to subversion at the manufacturer's stage in its entirety. So there is a technology development cycle and there is a supply chain cycle, and both the places we need to deal with. And the assessment scope actually begins from manufacture to disposal. And the 4 dimensions that I referred to would get covered in this area. Now, if you look at a resourceful adversary, he would actually leverage all these dimensions in all the phases of development of a system. In conclusion, I would say information assurance is critical, implies trust and dependability. Decision makers must be provided assurance that the information is accurate and reliable. You need assurance that the system is right, the system has been built right, the system is suitable for the operational environment, the system can be maintained across the expected life cycle. Is a complex activity. It requires all stakeholders to come now. We need assurance, and we need it badly, and we need it now. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Berman, thank you very much for a very comprehensive presentation.